At this point in his career, Santana is more of an institute rather than a musician. Yep, I said it. Now let's continue on with this review. Hi people, and hello my Chili Carnage crew, it's Chili here, the man with iron in my eyes, doing a 5-minute review on Santana's newest album, Sentient. Oh, Daryl, that's a guitar. Okay, I don't know whose idea it was to open with this tune, but they should be fired for suggesting the song even be included on the album. Anyway, I better be careful with what I say because my channel and Santana have history. In fact, when I did a review on Santana's last album, Blessings and Miracles, it proved to be my big first successful video for my channel, which inspired me to do an in-depth album by album tier list with Wazza, which goes on for 7 hours, and is separated in 3 parts, link below if you are curious to check that out. Now, if you weren't aware, this is not entirely new material from Carlos, but remastered or reworked material from various albums or outtakes from prior sessions, and a live performance in one occasion. There are 2 exceptions to this rule. The first being Coherence, which is a bit of a jam track performed with his wife Cindy Blackman, and sounds pretty cool in all honesty. And the latter one being a live version of Michael Jackson's song Stranger in Moscow, which I hold a bit of a personal connection for, and if you weren't aware of this, this is perhaps my favourite song by Michael Jackson, but I didn't know the original melody as it appears on his album. I knew it as a different version when I heard it way back in 1998 from the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 series, and if you were unfamiliar, then Michael Jackson performed the soundtrack for this game, which included a faster version of Stranger in Moscow on the Ice Cap Zone levels. Anyway, it's a nice rendition by Santana, and I'm not entirely certain, but I'm guessing it was performed shortly after MJ's passing. Might be wrong, correct me below, so. Now, another interesting aspect is, for example, any song that features Miles Davis, who was a massive influence for Santana and his sound, was recorded at only one session that they all shared back in 1990. While the music in this track certainly leans heavily into that lounge music vibe, you would certainly hear in some kind of club at 6 PM hours before the DJ shows up to really kick things into gear. In other words, it's essentially background music. It's not all entirely bad at the same time though. Because hey, it's Santana, I guess. Then there is the closing track, Blues for Salvador from his 1987 album, that is nothing more than a remastered rendition of this tune. It sounds nice with an updated touch, but there is little that we haven't heard before. And speaking of things that we have heard before, this album also contains the track I'll Be Waiting, which was on his 1977 album Moonflower. Certainly a great tune, but it does feel like this was just thrown in to give old school Santana fans a sense of familiarity. And of course, in my own conclusion, it's the only reason for this song's inclusion on this album. Now there is something that irks me when it comes to this album. How necessary was it? Now, I can certainly understand one aspect of it being, I guess, to introduce a new set of younger fans to his works. Of course, one that would be rarely revisited unless a deep dive was performed by the listener, but a lot of that material is far from the norm when you think of Santana and his music, or at least from a surface level. And another aspect was the 80s weren't exactly his strongest stuff. It's not completely out of his territory, however, and it should be stated of course it's not, because hey, he wrote and recorded all this stuff after all. But is there really any reason why people should revisit this material? One of the most scariest aspects about this album is how, I guess, the guest musician list on here reads more as an obituary to the greatest musical minds of the past, which is alarming considering that Santana is one of the few left, and of course is a sobering thought that time waits for no one after all. However, on the other hand, it stands as a testament to the musicians that Carlos has worked with during his lifetime, even if younger fans don't know who they are. Maybe this album will serve as a curiosity marker, and of course it makes the listener go down a bit of a rabbit hole and discover who these people are. So I guess there might be some kind of perspective to this album that we are yet to see. Overall, I'm going to give this album a score of 2 million chilies on the spicy scale, with my favourite tracks being Stranger in Moscow and Coherent. At the end of the day, Santana is a musician with plenty of compilation records under his belt, and this one just adds another notch to this. But there are much better compilations than this effort. If you want to listen to his best songs from the 80s, and of course his 90s era, then listen to Multi-Dimensional Warrior or the 1988 Viva Santana live album. This album is more directed to the hardcore fan base, I'd guess, but it seems to be marketed more towards his newer fan base. And of course this might actually have the opposite desired effect, because there is a lot of awesome music of his to discover if you go into a deep dive. Anyway, tell me below what your thoughts were on this album, and as always, listen to the album yourself, tell me your thoughts, and comment below with your favourite tracks. As always, stay spicy out there. If you've enjoyed this content, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to us, and stay notified for future music related content because it keeps our manager happy at the end of the day. We are also on Discord, Instagram, Facebook, and all those other social platforms if you want to check us out. As always, people, you have a great day and stay spicy.